everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to make chicken noodle soup because we've got a couple kiddos sick and a myriad of different types of grilled cheeses, essentially whatever ones my kids like the most. To start out, I've been boiling some water here so that our chicken can cook fast. And I'm putting in some chicken thighs. I find chicken thighs make the best broth. So I'm putting in 4 big chicken thighs, and I'll add some rotisserie chicken to it later, but 4 big chicken thighs to start with. I have it in my hot water. And I'm just gonna wash my hands since I got raw chicken on them. But the chicken thighs, I find if you're making a broth, chicken thighs make the best. I think it's because they just have a slightly higher fat content than the breast, and they just make a really nice broth. And then I'm gonna add some salt. This is just coarse sea salt and some pepper to start with. And this is just gonna make sure that my meat is also seasoned. And I'm gonna let it boil while I prep my vegetables. So we're gonna start with a yellow onion. And I'm going to cut off each end and peel off the outside. Let me get this out of my way. I always just take, I don't try the painstaking thing of peeling off the brown. I just take the first big chunk off just because it just makes it go so much faster. And yes, you lose a little bit, but to me, I always say time is precious. And I'm just gonna do a kind of a small dice on them because I don't want my onions to be too big in my soup. Because remember, think about what you would like on your spoon as you're eating. So just slice all the way through. Nice. And dice. Perfect. So I'm just gonna put these to the side. And now I'm going to prep my carrots. You could use like pre-cut carrots if you want, or baby carrots. This is just what I have. I typically go to Costco and buy in bulk. And so it's just when you have 5 kids and you're cooking a lot, bulk is better. So if you're using regular carrots like this, you're gonna wanna make sure you peel them because the outer skin will be tough and it has a different type of flavor.
What are you making tonight?
Tonight we are making chicken noodle soup and just a plethora of different types of grilled cheeses. Essentially whatever each one of my kids like, I'm making that. We've got a little, I would say, cold going through our house right now, and chicken noodle soup is just what the doctors ordered. Luckily, we tested negative for strep, flu A, B, and COVID, so just a virus. We've got a big bubbling over here. I'm just gonna turn it out. Now I'm actually gonna probably take a little bit of broth out. I overfilled my pot when I was doing it, and I didn't realize that until I popped my chicken in. But just a quick way, if you ever overfill, just take a ladle and just take a couple scoops. And I'm just gonna hold on to this broth just in case, as I'm cooking, if it evaporates, I can add it back in. So I'm just gonna hold it here. And I ever do that sometimes when you put stuff in your pot and it starts to overflow, I'll just put a reserve to the side. That way in case I need it, because if you notice as it cooks, the steam rises up and you'll have some of it evaporate out as you cook. And we're gonna finish peeling off these. Again, always, if you're using long, regular carrots, always peel them. That outer one has just not as good flavor and it's tough. And you can really tell the difference between a peeled carrot and an unpeeled carrot. There is definitely a distinct flavor difference. Perfect. And then I'm going to chop the ends off of each one. And I'm going to do, my big ones, I'm gonna cut these in half, and then I'm gonna chop them down just because I don't wanna have a really huge carrot piece. So just kind of a simple chop through. My smaller ones, I'll just leave whole and just cut them, but for my bigger ones, I'm going to chop them in half, simply because I don't want to have a huge piece of carrot that big in my soup. A, won't cook as quickly as the other ones, and B, who wants a huge piece of carrot? You want a mixture of vegetables when you're making your soup. Let's see. I'm just chopping through, and I'm just a basic small chop. I always say, when you're making, depending on what you're eating, think of how you're going to eat it, and just imagine that's the size you want. And I'll chop these guys off. And nice little chop on there. And I'm just using the far end of my blade to chop through, simply because that gives me the most force pushing down. If you try to chop from up here, it's not as, you don't have as strong of a push down. Turn my little broth up a little more. And chop. There we go. So I've got our carrot. Let's see, I think I'll use them all. And I always say, when you're making chicken noodle soup, you need to start with raw chicken. You can always make it with like shredded chicken or add in rotisserie chicken or sauteed. But if you want the good broth and the benefits, which is, I feel like chicken noodle soup, what your star of your soup is really your broth. And so you really need the fat that comes from like the meat with the skin on it, the raw meat, because it really just adds a whole nother flavor profile to your broth, which you can't get with like bouillon or just using like boneless, skinless chicken breasts. So I always use chicken thighs, and a lot of times I'll use a pack of chicken thighs and then a split chicken breast. They were all out of the split chicken breast this week when I went to the store. So I'm just gonna use the rest of some rotisserie chicken I have for that. But I made sure I had my thighs, because it just adds a richness and a flavor profile that you just can't imitate. Okay, let me clean up. And now we're gonna prep our celery. And so for my chicken noodle soup, I use onions, carrots, celery, fresh green beans, and then the noodles I use are these. You buy them in the freezer section. They're Ream's home-style egg noodles, and they're the best for making like a big batch of chicken noodle soup, because they don't get soggy. If you use noodles straight out of a box, they can get really soggy after a while, or too tender. And so these home-style noodles that you get out of the freezer section are just wonderful, because they stay firm even like a day or two later. And then my secret ingredient that I add towards the end is I add leeks, which is in the onion family. And they just add just a nice, really great flavor to my broth. And I'm just gonna slice up my celery in like size just about this big, kind of the same sizes as my carrots. I want all of them to be about the same size so that they can be on your spoon nicely when you're eating. Nothing too large, they'll all cook about the same time as well. When I'm doing my broth and stuff like this, I will start with my chicken in it, and then I'm going to add these 3 vegetables first. I will wait to add my green beans, because if you put them in too soon with your other ones, they will they'll get soggy and mushy. So I wait to add that, and I wait to add my leeks until closer towards the end, so that they keep their nice firmer texture, and they don't just think about it. If you cook them too long, they're gonna be like a canned green bean, and nobody wants a mushy green bean in there. So I'm gonna add this to my pot of soup. And this is gonna cook in with the chicken and really give it a great flavor. And like I said, the key to chicken noodle soup is the broth. I probably should have used a bigger pot today, but I'm just gonna take some of this out, and I'll move it there and use it later if I need it. I have so many different Dutch ovens that I forget which one I sometimes use with each recipe. But chicken noodle soup, I typically use my bigger, I have a soup pot, which is a more rounded bowl. not sure why I didn't grab it today. There we go. Probably because we just came back from soccer. My daughter had a futsal game. I don't know if you guys know what futsal is, but futsal is essentially soccer that you play on a basketball court. And it's a really intense game. So I'm gonna put that all in here, and I'm gonna let it simmer and heat up for a little bit, and I'm going to add just a little bit more pepper since I took some of out. And if you look at some of the broth I took out, I took some of the pepper with it because pepper kind of sits on the top of your broth. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more because I want to make sure it's a fully seasoned broth. And while we're doing that, I'm gonna start prepping my grilled cheeses over here because I'm gonna have to do 2 batches since we've got a large family. I'm gonna start out with my older kids and what they want. So my daughter, my oldest daughter, she's gonna want a ham and Swiss. My son is gonna want a ham and cheddar. And they all want different breads. I always say, when you have a big family, you can't please them all. And this is a great way to use up a lot of my bread. But I think grilled cheese pairs wonderful with chicken noodle soup. I was deciding whether to do biscuits or grilled cheese, and grilled cheese won. Okay, let's start this. So first what we're gonna do is we're gonna coat each side, or one side of each slice of bread with some butter. And this is gonna be what's gonna be going down on our skillet. And it will crisp up nicely. I'm just gonna see how many this guy will hold because I've got some breads of different sizes. They're all actually sourdough. One is from the bakery. One is this like rustic sourdough you can get in the bread aisle. And the other one is everything sourdough, which has everything bagel seasoning on the crust. It's actually really delicious. Place these down and get them all prepped up while our broth over here starts to simmer and cook. And a little bit what we'll do is once the chicken thighs have cooked all the way, we'll pull them out and let them cool, and then we'll add in our other ingredients. We'll get this going. A lot of times if I'm making a lot of grilled cheese for my family, I'll just do it in the oven on the air fryer setting because I can get them all done really quickly. But today I actually have the time to do it on the skillet, which I think makes a much better grilled cheese. And cover the butter on this side. Let me see how many I can get. I can probably get one more on this batch. There we go. And remember, you just want to cover one side of each piece of bread with butter because that's just what's going to be touching the skillet. Go through. Perfect. And now we're going to start with my oldest. She's going to want ham and Swiss. So I'm going to just I'll need 2 pieces of Swiss cheese for this. And we're going to put 1 there. And then for our ham, I'm just going to take 2 slices of ham. I'm going to fold them like that. And put another piece of Swiss on top. And we've got ham and Swiss for her. My son, my oldest son, he wants ham and cheddar. It's funny how each kid has their flavor preferences when it comes down to each grilled cheese. And he wants his on the most plain bread. So put 1.5 here, since this is a bigger slice. And I always make sure my cheese doesn't slide over, because if it slides over, it will melt onto your skillet and burn. So just make sure that it's kind of covering where the bread is. You can always just break off like this, because the goal is to get it on the bread. And this is our ham and Swiss. So for those who've joined us later, I've got Swiss, ham, Swiss. And now we're gonna put our ham right here. And I will just use that last piece on there for him. and fill it up. And then my other ones, they're just some plain Janes, no ham or anything on it. We're gonna get that going. And we're gonna use a mixture of different cheeses for them. So I've got sharp cheddar and Colby Jack. And we're gonna do Munster as well, because these cheeses all have good melting points. So when you think about grilled cheeses, always think about ones that have a good melting point. Parmesan cheese takes a long time to melt, so it's not the best in it, or our other really hard cheeses. So what I'm just gonna do is kind of stack some cheeses on each one of these. So that one was Munster, Colby Jack, and cheddar. Add another slice. And these will be for my younger 3 because they don't like ham on their sandwiches. And my last one, I'm just gonna do, oh, looks like we got a good bubble over here. Turn it down some. And perfect. Get this cheese out. Gotta get those things that are stick there. So I'm gonna put on here as well, cheddar there, and some Colby Jack. So it's kind of like a triple cheddar. Perfect. And I'm going to turn my skillet on to about a medium because I don't want them to burn. And we're gonna come over here. I'm gonna give it a good stir. On here, oh, look at this. I think my husband pointed out that I had some overlap over here. But you always just say, you wanna make sure you don't have them, because if you do, it's just gonna burn on your skillet and then it'll just, burnt cheese is never good. So I've got those tucked in. Okay, now I'm gonna give my chicken soup its little stir and let my chicken cut up, and I'm gonna prep my other vegetables to add in there. So we've got green beans. I like to use fresh green beans, but you could also use frozen. They work as well. I'm just gonna take about a handful out. And I'm gonna chop off the ends of them so that they're not as tough and dry. And then I'll chop the ends off of this side. And we're gonna add these in towards the end, because if you add your green beans in too soon, they'll get mushy. And perfect. And then I'm just gonna I'm gonna chop them into thirds, because think about when you're scooping stuff on a spoon, you don't want to have a huge green bean on it. You want something that's manageable on your spoon. And if you're, you know, when you buy dinner sets and they come with 2-sized spoons, the small ones and the big ones, well, we never use the big ones for eating. I don't know anybody who uses a big spoon for eating. That we always use those for just like scooping out stuff and serving. So I always am like, what will fit on my small spoons? That's the size for kids. And then I also have my 1-year-old. I'm like, what's a good size for him to eat? So I've got these. Cut some of these ones. But just, you see, I'm just making them small things so that they'll spread out and be able to scoop it up with some of the other vegetables. I don't put a ton of green beans in it because half my kids don't really care for them, but just enough to where you've got a pop of green and color in there. I'm gonna give this a nice stir. You can see it simmering. We've got our vegetables coming up to the top, but this yellow stuff around the edges and whatnot, that's the fat from the chicken rendering out, and that's what's really gonna give you the nice flavor for your broth. And then we're gonna prep our leeks. This one's multi-step. So leeks, and I'll pull it apart, and I want you to see how dirty they are? So we're gonna have to slice these up, and we're gonna have to rinse them, otherwise you'll have dirt in your soup. I didn't realize that for the longest time, how dirty they were. And I would be like, why does my soup have gritty or whatnot? And it's because leeks, they look like they're washed and clean from the outside, but these inner layers are full of like not just like dirt, but like a sandy dirt. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slice them all up, and then I'm gonna put them in a colander and rinse them so that I get any of that sand and dirt out. Just like, and I use all of it because I think it adds such a beautiful flavor to our soup. Perfect. And even the last little tender parts, which don't have as much of an oniony flavor, the stalks up here, the dark green, isn't as oniony as the lower parts. And essentially a leek is just part of, it's like, think of a giant green onion. I'm gonna grab a colander out here. And I'm gonna just put mine in here and I'm gonna rinse it thoroughly and shaking so that I can get all of the dirt out. But this makes all the difference in the soup is the, I feel like the leeks. It adds just such a nice, like, oniony flavor to the broth in a way that makes it such a savory and nice. And I'm just sticking my fingers in there and really trying to make sure I get any of that dirt out because you don't want to have dirt in your soup. There we go. A good stir. Perfect. Give it a shake. We'll have these sit right here. Perfect. Let's check on our grilled cheese over here, see how they are progressing. Let me pull the spatula out. I don't hear them sizzling yet, so they're just starting to turn a little golden. I'm gonna let them sit a little bit longer because I don't want them, I want them to have a mild golden crust on it, and then I'll flip them, and then we'll finish up our golden crust towards the end. Okay, I'm gonna pull out a piece of chicken, and we're gonna see if it's ready to take out, if it's cooked all the way through. So I'm gonna pull up one, and I'm just gonna use my knife, and I'm gonna cut into it. And pull it right out of here, it might be easier. And if I see that it's cooked all the way through, I will know that I can set it in. Looks like they are cooked all the way through. So what I'm gonna do, because these are gonna be really hot to shred, let me get a big plate. I'm gonna sit them on a big plate, and then I'm going to peel off the skin. That way they cool off faster. If you leave the skin on, then it takes like an extra 10 minutes for them to cool down. So I've got, and I'll turn this broth up. And as you see, as I take each one out, my water level on my soup is dropping because water displacement theory. Now I should have one more in here. Perfect. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my tongs to just peel back this top skin so that it will cool off faster. And otherwise, it will trap the skin, will essentially act like a coat and just keep it insulated and trap the heat in, making it much harder for you to shred this chicken in a little bit. Perfect. I'm gonna just take each one off. It's very hot. Think if you're pulling it out, so the chicken and everything is gonna be very hot in here. Perfect. Nice. So I'll let those cool so I can shred them in a little bit. Now that we have our broth over here boiling, I'm going to add in my leeks and my green beans and a big heaping spoonful of chicken bouillon. This is where I'm gonna get most of the saltiness from my broth. So big spoonful. And then I think my chicken, I'm smelling it sizzle. I hope I didn't leave it too long. This guy got a little longer than I should have, but that's okay.
You got a question on what are leeks?
Leeks are like giant green onions. And so essentially they're in the onion family. So think of, you have like onions, chives, green onions. Leeks are just a really big green onion. Let's see if I still have the bottom. So this is like the bottom of the leek, and it's not as bulbous as a green onion, and typically it has little roots growing out of the top of it. And it has a nice flavor of an onion, but a very delicate. So it's not very overpowering. It's a very delicate onion flavor. This guy, luckily we got him before he burned, but he definitely got a good crisp, but he'll only get cooked on one side. But these ones, I'll cook them twice on each side. My stove, this pan is much bigger than my burner, as you can see. And so I find that one this far in cooks much faster than the others. I'm going to give my soup over here a nice stir because I want to make sure those leeks are pushed under. If you've ever heard of a vichyssoise, that is a chilled potato and leek soup. And essentially that's like a potato and onion soup, or it's made with just potatoes, chicken broth, leeks, and cream. And you mix those together, you blend them, you can eat it hot, and then you can eat it the next day cold. But that's another soup that uses leeks in it. That's just really wonderful.
And you got a question, you cook every night?
I do cook every night. Well, I shouldn't say every night. There are times where we'll go out to eat, or if I'm under the weather or whatnot, we'll grab something quick, just like every, American family. But yeah, a lot of times I try to cook every night. When you have a family as big as ours, going out to eat can be quite expensive. We have 5 kids, and then there's us, so that's 7 people. 7 people at a restaurant, even 7 people at McDonald's can be expensive. We have a hard time, if you've ever been to Sonic and you use their app, they have a max cap at $75. You know how hard it is to order for a family of 7 to be under $75? It's like impossible. So essentially we place an order, and then when we get there, we place our ice cream shake order to be second. These guys are sizzling up nicely. You can see the cheese is melting well. I'm going to turn my skillet down. Perfect. Making sure none of them are burning. I've got it down nice and low. And so what we're going to do, I've got my broth back up to a boil. I'm going to add in my egg noodles. So these are frozen in the freezer section, and I'm going to take you out. They look like old-fashioned noodles. These are the best noodles I have found for chicken noodle soup. You see, they're just like a thick noodle. They don't get soggy. Even 2 days later, they won't be soggy. They're very different than if you were to use a box noodle. Those are I feel like they're soggy within an hour. These noodles, they're my favorite. I've gotten them at Target, and I've gotten them at Publix, and I think Kroger has them as well. I'm not sure where all you guys are, but I'm pretty sure your grocery store might have them. They're in the freezer section next to the biscuits and dumplings. That's where I found them. And I'm gonna give it a good stir. And I think look at this, we've got a cheese overflow. But these are ready, so I'm gonna turn my skillet off real quick and get a plate to transfer these guys on, which is perfect because our soup will be ready in a few minutes. So I'm gonna put this guy, because look at this, beautiful. They're stuck together, but look at that. How much melty cheese you have in there. And this was our Kobe Jack, cheddar, and Munster. So we've got 3 of those. So they're my triple grilled cheese. And I have my Swiss one go a little bit longer. And this is my ham and cheddar. And my Swiss has a slightly higher, longer melting point, so I'm gonna leave that guy on there for a little bit longer. And I'm gonna prep some of my chicken over here.
Yeah, question, what types of bread? But I think you used a few different.
Yes, so depending on which kid, because they have different. For these 3 right there, I used an everything bagel sourdough. It has a nice everything bagel seasoning on it. And then I just used a rustic sourdough and a bakery sourdough. So they're all like sourdoughs, because I think sourdoughs make the nicest crisp on it when I'm making grilled cheese. And then my last batch, which are for my younger two, I'm gonna grab some just honey wheat because they struggle on the sourdough to eat it. And so I'm gonna just grab some honey wheat for them and make their grilled cheese with honey wheat. And that's simply because sourdough gives you a wonderful crust and chew, but my 1-year-old and my 3-year-old, they kind of struggle trying to bite through those. So they just get plain Jane honey wheat because that's the bread we have. And for my last two, I'm just gonna make theirs straight up, I think cheddar and Munster, but I gotta find, where did my butter knife go? Butter knife. So if this is my favorite little tool for shredding it, it's a butter paddle, but it just works works so much better than an actual like metal knife spreading. My friend got it for me in Sweden. Her mother lives in Sweden and my family's from Sweden, and they actually live, and we met, you know, with that, but her mother lives like in the same town as my cousins, so it's just such a random life event that we meet, and we just happen to have relatives in a different country in the same town. But her mother always sends me little presents from Sweden. And just spread it. And for them, I'm just gonna do, for my younger two, just a plain Jane. I don't use American cheese, I will tell you that. I guess I'll give them Munster because Munster's pretty good on there. But I am anti-American cheese in this house. I think that's my European family roots, but I don't like it. Even on a burger, I want cheddar or something like that. So I'm gonna use a little bit of this rotisserie chicken that I have. Normally I would use a split chicken breast and cook it up in there with my thighs, but they were all out of that at the store. And I don't like to use boneless, skinless chicken breasts. I feel like they're just, in soups, they don't cook up well. They're great for sauteing, but in soups, you need the skin because you want the fat from the skin. It's gonna make a tender meat. So I'm gonna put some of this in here. And did I turn my skillet on? I'm gonna turn my skillet on over here and put it on a low. And then I'm gonna start shredding these chicken thighs. And now that they've cooled off for the most part. And again, these probably will be hot to touch for some of you, so you can always wait longer. They'd probably be way too hot for my husband. He's very heat sensitive, but I don't know if it's just I've developed cooking calluses or I'm just a woman and we can handle a lot more heat. But I'm just gonna pull these off in here. I think the chicken thigh meat also works really well in soups because it doesn't get, I feel like chicken breast will fall apart. Chicken thigh stays together in nice good chunks. It doesn't fall apart. Put these on here. Break them apart in manageable pieces for my kids. There we go. But this will be great. You know, I said we have a couple kids sick, and when one gets sick, I feel like they all get sick. And the first meal I make as soon as we have somebody come down with a cold or whatnot is chicken noodle soup. It is a favorite, and you can't go wrong with some grilled cheeses. I'm gonna stir these in gently, and then I'm gonna flip my grilled cheese over here because I have a feeling they're gonna be cooked soon.
You're not lying about that.
There we go. Perfect. Look at that nice golden crust on these. Regular bread like this, like a wheat bread, it cooks up a lot faster than a sourdough. A sourdough takes a little bit longer to crisp. Same thing if you do them in the oven or an air fryer, the wheat bread will cook about a minute faster than sourdough or the other ones to kind of crisp up. And we'll put the last bit of this chicken in. Got one more thigh. It'll be a nice meaty chicken noodle soup. And I always say you could be delicate and do this with a fork and a knife, but with real cooking, you gotta get your hands in and I always say just go full in to do it. You'll be surprised. It's not as bad as people think. You can always wash your hands when you're done, but it works faster. It would take me forever to try to do this with like a fork and a knife. Okay, we're getting to the top of this. Woo! I really should have used my bigger pot. See, even I've been cooking for years and I still make mistakes. I think making mistakes is just part of life. I underestimated how much, but that will be fine. It's still gonna taste delicious. Perfect. That just means more mess to clean up. Okay, I'm gonna wash my hands because I've got the shredded chicken. But the beauty of it is now that the chicken's in, my soup is done. Let me flip these guys. They need a little bit more, but I'm gonna get a plate out and I'm gonna start serving up a dish for you guys. So, my favorite bowls. I call these my little cauldrons. Makes me feel like I'm a witch or something. So I'm gonna put my grilled cheese I made myself a triple cheese grilled cheese. And I'm gonna help myself to a nice pot of soup. Perfect. And then my broth is my favorite part. And so I feel like he's the star of the show. And we've got our chicken noodle soup with our triple cheddar grilled cheese. And I will show you, look at that. We've got that nice gooey cheese. And last but not least, Excellent. Well, thank you guys for joining me tonight. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I like to do lots of live cooking shows every single day, making various meals that my family eats. It's real food, real recipes, real ingredients. But thanks again for joining, everyone. I'll see you guys later.